Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us live with Dr. Isaac Eliaz. And I am Bridgit Danner. If you haven't met me, I'm just going to hide this slide for a minute while we get to chat with him. So I promised Dr. Eliaz I would tell him a fun story, and he doesn't know the story is yet. So, Dr. Eliaz, I came out with a binder this spring, maybe March or so, and it has some pectin in it, some citrus pectin. And I was getting these questions. Is it Dr. Elias's citrus pectin? And I was like, who is that? Like, I don't even know what this is. So you definitely have been doing a good job about spreading the word about citrus pectin because your faithful followers were like, oh my god, like, do you have the right pectin? So I thought that was really awesome. And so later I was like, I've got to find out more about this guy. Even though we've been selling Pectasol for some years now. So luckily your support team reached out to me and I said, oh yeah, I definitely want to get to know him and interview him. And you were kind enough to send me a copy of your book and some other supplements you've developed. So it's been a real pleasure to get to know you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and today I will explain the difference between regular pectin as a binder in the gut and modified citrus pectin. And you'll see how we use both of them for mold and mycotoxin. It's a great combination.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so excited. So I'm going to read your bio in a second here. I'm on vacation, as I mentioned. Do you have a copy of your book handy too that we can show and tell people?
Yeah, you kind of see it behind me, but yes, this is my book, and
Okay, The Survival
yeah,
Paradox.
you can find
It's
it
a
on
really lovely book.
yeah, you can find it
Yeah.
on Amazon.
Yeah, we were saying before, we're both acupuncturists, and the book has a really nice element of like the importance of mindfulness and peacefulness and cultivating that in chronic illness, which I think is so much true. And Dr. Elias has done a lot of specialty in the field of cancer, which we'll talk about. Susan is saying she takes the Pectasol chewables every day. Is there a chewable?
Yeah, there is. I take the capsules, but people take chewables. Yeah,
Oh, I
children.
didn't
It's really
know.
good. It's really good for children for low dose. People who need only 5 grams, they can take 2 chewables twice a day, and it gets 5 grams.
Oh, so interesting. Cool. Okay, let me just read your bio real quick and then we'll get started. Thanks for sharing that, Susan. So, Isaac Eliaz, MD, MS, LAC, is a pioneer in the field of integrative medicine with more than 30 years of experience as a physician and researcher. He has partnered with some of the nation's leading research institutes, including Harvard and Columbia universities. As an internationally recognized expert in the treatment of cancer, detoxification, immune health, and complex diseases, Dr. Elias embraces a whole person approach to healing. He is the author of The Survival Paradox, as well as the owner and formulator of Echo Eugenics and Clinical Synergy Professionals Formulas, a line of science-backed supplements. He is also the founder and medical director of Amitabha. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Medical Clinic and Healing Center in Santa Rosa, California. So, this is a live, and you guys are welcome at any point along the way to share a comment, to ask a question. And we'll stop if there's time. And I'm really thankful that Dr. Elias has brought slides today. I'm going to pop those up here because I know you guys love learning. My audience loves to learn. So today we're going to focus on detoxifying from mold and mycotoxins. We're going to talk about kinds of binders. And then he's got a sleep formula as well. We're going to talk a bit about, so as you probably gathered from our earlier chat, he has a lot of experience with like formulation and ingredients, and it really makes a big difference in effective protocols. So again, I'm super happy to have you here, Dr. Elias.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'll give the presentation, then people can, of course, ask questions, and I'll try to make it as broad. And so I'm going to give the presentation in the context of the survival paradox and the survival paradox protein, which is really key. Addressing it is the key to longevity and to health. And today, whoever is listening will understand why. So a little bit about my background you already mentioned, so there is no need. I'm an active researcher. I'm a recipient of of different NIH grants where I researched this protein and developed different methods for removing it. And I combine this with decades of training and teaching in mind-body medicine and with being a clinician and a healer. So it's a certain integration. I'm getting close to 40 years of experience. I got to admit, I'm hiding behind the 30, but I'm almost at 40 years of being a medical doctor. So I'm no longer a kid.
It's amazing, and we just keep learning, which is really so
Yeah.
true in this field.
It's critical. At the moment you think you're not a student, like I just finished a certain course I did in a certain ancient text in Buddhism. I've studied myself for 15 years, but now I finished a 4 years training, and it just ended like a few days ago. And wow, fun to be a student. So what the survival paradox really offers a new paradigm, a paradigm shift in how we see diseases. In integrative approaches, we are aware of inflammation driving almost every disease. In medicine now, with the know-how of COVID and the cytokine storm, recognizes it. But inflammation is really not the cause, it's the result. What drives inflammation is the survival response. We are built innately, inherently, and forever to survive. As a people, organs, tissues, cells, all the way to the cellular level, and all the way to the mitochondria. If we are a time of peace with no threats and survival, we have normal mitochondrial function. All diseases go away, basically, if the mitochondria function
Wow.
right? When we're in survival mode, extremely inefficient metabolism, 5% only efficiency, a lot of byproducts, and we get really sick. So the initial response to the survival response when we're in danger from anything, from emotional threats, physical threats, traumas, infections, mycotoxins, mold, pesticides, heavy metals, the sympathetic system responds in a fraction of a second. We go into a sympathetic mode, it's autonomic, and of course it affects our brain, affects our gut, in context of mold, and of your work, and it affects every system. But within minutes, our biochemical system responds. That's where my research is for almost 30 years, with a protein called galectin-3 that drives the inflammatory response. So this master alarm protein that responds to cell danger, to infection, to injury, to stress, drives inflammation, and as a result, it drives the degenerative process. If you look at galectin-3, there are only, on PubMed, there are only more than 8,000 published papers. And if you look at them, they cover practically every disease. Why? Because it's fundamental, it's foundational, it's an upstream protein that starts so many processes in an attempt to survive, response by activating the immune response. We then get hyperimmune response by the cytokine storm, we all know about it. It instigates recruitment and infiltration of immune cells, and it creates a pro-inflammatory, pro-fibrotic signaling cascade. And the pro-fibrotic, in the context of the gut, is what a biofilm is. It creates a layer, it creates a shield. It fuels cancer growth, metastasis, organ failure, biofilm formation, cytokine storm, sepsis. So what is it? This is a protein, galectin-3, that binds to different ligands, to different glycoprotein, glycolipids, through a carbohydrate called galacturonic acid. And once it binds, it creates a pentamer. And then pentamer binds one to another and creates a lattice formation. Then can also bind to the cell wall, can bind to the gut wall. And that right here is our biofilm. That's where bacteria can hide and the body cannot control it in the same way. We create a microenvironment which can be poor in oxygen and can lend itself to growth of fungus, of yeast, of anaerobic bacteria, and a great place for mycotoxins to hide, right? Bridgit, if you look at where is mold, you don't see mold in the fresh air in the sun, right? You see it where it's dark and moldy. Why? Because there is no oxygen. It's hiding. It's a different environment. So galectin-3 is a backbone of the biofilm, and it's totally have been overlooked. So if we can break this biofilm, the body can deal with the problem. That's why, for example, patient with Lyme disease, modified citrospectin, Pectasol is a foundational product that they actually tolerate well. They feel better with, which is so unusual. Why? Because not only does it expose the infectious agents, it controls the abnormal inflammation. And that's the beauty of it. So the way that it happens, so when we understand it, we understand the importance of using modified citrospectin. Today we are focusing specifically on a protocol for mycotoxin. I'm kind of narrowing my background to this because it's a natural inhibitor of the survival paradox protein. It has over 75 published papers. You look at the papers, the work on modified citrospectin, which I was involved with early on, was in cancer. It prevented cancer growth and metastasis. In fact, we are now publishing we are presenting in the equivalent of ASCO in Europe, a multi-center 18 months follow-up on biochemical relapse of prostate cancer with amazing results. But if you look at the studies, you see studies in kidney, in heart, in strokes, in multiple areas. I was fortunate to make the observation first that when you block galectin-3, you attenuate, you prevent the inflammatory and the fibrotic damaging process. You're able to detoxify and remove heavy metals, and you're able to regulate the immune response, which is really what we want in such cases. So how do we do it? The modified citrospectin, which has the same sugars that comes into this binding site of the galectin-3 comes. So here you got your different ligands. Like these are inflammatory ligands, growth factor ligands, sticky molecules, immune suppressing molecules. You get modified citrospectin, which is a long chain of carbohydrate, to come in. It displaces the ligands. That's a structure with very important immune enhancing neutral sugars, and you have neutralized the damaging effect of galectin-3. And that's why when we started using modified citrospectin, the feedback was, my joints are getting better, my memory is getting better, my blood pressure is getting better. This was early on, like over 20 years ago, and that's when the association came to me. Wow, this is regulating inflammation. This is much more than cancer. And not that cancer is not a big area, of course. And now it's really the main attention. Galectin-3 is an approved FDA lab test, approved by every insurance. But the role is, if we can neutralize it, we are addressing the driver of inflammation. And that's why modified citrospectin, in my opinion, and I got 40 years of doing supplements and formulations, and dozens of patents and dozens of papers. It's the most important supplement someone can use.
I'm going to just pause and do a little summary. If people are hearing some of this for the first time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this.
Absolutely.
That this protein galactin-3, while we think of inflammation as the bad guy, inflammation is a result of there's a threat to the body or a perceived threat of some kind. So the body responds, activates the immune system, and this protein is an activator. And then one thing it's doing besides inflammation is making a lattice of biofilm where different infectious things can thrive. And then the citrospectin comes in. I think you have a horticulture story on this one, and actually kind of blocks some of these infectious matters from attaching, and then kind of breaks up the biofilm.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So citrospectin doesn't do this. Okay. Only modified citrospectin.
Okay,
thank you for correcting me. Citrospectin has a large molecular weight of 100 to 300 kilodalton, and it's esterified, which means it doesn't have a charge. And so it's very good for binding of toxins in the gut, because mycotoxins often are fat soluble, they are not charged. The modified citrospectin, Pectasol, is specifically structured so it's a completely different function. It gets absorbed from the gut to the bloodstream, and it neutralizes the damaging effect of galectin-3. But for mycotoxins, you want to combine both. You want to address the issue in the gut, and you want to stabilize the gut lining, which modified cytospectin will do because it will break the biofilm. So the biofilm, this lattice formation is a biofilm, but it's also the arteriosclerotic plaque. It's also the area that creates microenvironment where cancer can thrive. It's also what stimulates macrophage to tell the body, the immune cells, we have an inflammation, we are on fire. It's also what goes into the brain, galectin-3, and tells microglia there is a problem, and we get microglia activation, neuroinflammation. So you got the gut-brain connection. Galectin-3 will disrupt the blood-brain barrier. And in fact, if we have hypoperfusion, lack of blood supply to the brain for a short time, galectin-3 will rush to the place and will create damage. And if we put MCP, it will prevent damage. You see why some of the research on MCP is on neuroinflammation. Another, we have like 6 papers with the USDA being a prebiotic and inhibiting damaging bacteria because it regulates the biofilm. Why? Because we're addressing the waterfall at the top. Very often in medicine and in integrative medicine, we try to control things at the bottom. TNF alpha, interleukin 6. Well, that's kind of like catching the waterfall with a bucket. A little bit too late. We are shutting the waterfall at the top. And that's why I said it's a foundational supplement that you can, of course, integrate with anything else, with probiotics, with prebiotic, with different herbs, with different vitamins, because it's fundamentally we let conventional treatments like chemotherapy, radiation, immunotherapy in cancer, antibiotics in infections, work better, herbs, because it's addressing a foundational process. So when you look at the benefits of modified cytospectin, you will see inhibits cancer growth and metastasis, inhibits damage to the heart, to the liver, to the lung, to the kidney. You will see it reduces inflammation and fibrosis, favorably modulates immune function, selectively chelates heavy metals. I published a number of papers on this, and it synergizes with other therapies. And that's why, for example, in the very sensitive mycotoxins, muscle activation, Lyme disease people, it's a savior because it can be tolerated because it reduces inflammation. So when we understand this, with understanding this context, I want to look for really a quick glance at one of my favorite topics, which I often teach for a few days on, which is detoxification. And again, it's not the topic of the day, but detoxification is often oversimplified and really not understood that we detoxify all the time. Our life is a dance between detoxification, exhalation, nourishment, inhalation, and the transformation that happens between them. On the level of the connection between us and the universe through the breath, on the level of the membrane of the cell, and on the level of the mitochondria. So understanding that detoxification is so foundational to us, we want to be able to do it on an ongoing basis, which is a lot of the protocol we're discussing right now. And we want to do it as an exerted effort in the right time. Chinese medicine talks about the spring as the fall, as a changing season. So if you want to do a more exerted detoxification, you want to pre-detoxify by reducing inflammation, starting to improve your diet, your lifestyle, by exposing toxins, for example, using modified cytospectin, and by deciding what you want to expose, what you want to get rid of. Is it an emotional trauma? Is it a psychological trauma? Is it a toxin? Is it a toxic treatment? Is it problematic relationship? Is it a conflict? Is it epigenetic effects from previous generation, which I share in my book, my story with the Holocaust and my grandfather I'm named after, etc. And then we got to expose the area we want to detoxify. Otherwise, we're not going to get to the tissue. And that's, again, we touch this with the Pectasol, and we want enhance immune surveillance. We can use medicinal mushrooms. Again, modified cytospectin is a major immune enhancer. And then we got to bind toxins in the gut and in the circulation. So in the gut, you talked about your binder, you talked about modified cytospectin. It's a great binder. It's a great binder. It binds cholesterol, it binds lipid-soluble toxins, definitely. And you want to prevent toxin reabsorption, with also different binders do, alginates, pectins, kelp, etc. And in the same time, you want to help the liver, phase 1 and 2, detoxify, discharge from the organ to the system, and to eliminate. So the urine, feces, skin, breath, that's elimination. If we have an imbalance between discharge and elimination, we get a phase 1, phase 2 imbalance. There are many formulas that address it. And then we got to support the system. We got to give system energy. Chinese medicine is very big on using energy herbs to help digestion. We need enough energy to detoxify. We know it in Chinese medicine, right? I mean, Wang Qi astragalus is one of the most commonly used energy tonics, but at high dosages, it becomes a detoxifying diuretic because it has enough energy that the body can let go. So we want to protect the organs and tissues, which is really interesting. You will see this when I talk about the sleep formula. We need to protect the brain, which is under inflammatory attack. And this is something I learned from some very legendary meditation masters in the Himalayas, which happen to live at 14,500 feet. So they have to deal with lack of oxygen, which mimics neuroinflammation.
Wow, interesting.
So this is really an approach. So within it, I just want to give people a sense. And then every time we exhale, we have an opportunity to detoxify. Every time a thought leaves, we have a chance to let go before we grab the next thought. That's why the gap between the exhalation and the inhalation is a great time to let go. And it's actually not such, there's some profound advice in it, because it means that we never know what's going to be the next thought. We never know what's going to happen, which means we have infinite potential to heal and to transform. It's only our mind, our habits, our fixations that limit us. And when things get limited, when things get sticky, we call it phlegm, right? In Chinese medicine, what grows there? Mold and mycotoxins, right? So you can see why mold and mycotoxin will affect sleep and concentration and obsessiveness and worry and tiredness after we eat, because everything gets sticky. And so I'm even in this quick presentation, I want to give people some association, so it opens doors, and that's really what the book does, of course, but that's really the power of meditation when we connect with our heart, because our head always thinks and analyzes. Our heart never stops. Our heart lets go, exchanges
True.
blood, and gives and gives and gives. The moment the heart stops, the story is over, So our heart is a profound healing, has profound healing power. That's what I call open heart medicine, really what I teach in meditation.
Yeah, the book is fantastic. That graphic, could you go back one sec for that last one? This is such a great graphic. If people want to screenshot it, just as kind of something to refer to. I think it can feel so daunting, how to go about detox. So I love how you organize it.
Yes, and then in my book, I talk about the survival paradox, survival protein, metabolism, circulation, and then I talk about a little bit about how to block galectin-3, and then I talk about to use our heart, and then I go after every big disease, cancer, major organ, immunity, microbiome. But then I have 3 chapters of solutions. No point to say there's a problem if we don't have solutions, right? It's like right now they talk about global warming, and they are saying that the big iceberg in Antarctica is going to melt. Well, great. Can you give me some solutions also?
I know. We just
right?
argue about that part.
So the idea is there are solutions. So the first one is detoxification, when I really spend the whole chapter explaining this. And then how do we heal our scars of survival from this life, from epigenetic, from genetic? And then how do we free the survival paradox? How do we free this response? That's where life gets transformed. And we do have a choice. The heart is a secret. So, but you got to go through the journey to understand the last chapter. So if I keep going, so now I want to talk about pesticides a little bit. So you can't really separate mycotoxin with pesticides, because pesticides cause dysbiosis, which naturally suppresses normal bacterial growth in the gut, affects the gut lining, causes autoimmunity, gut-brain, the gut-brain axis and neuroinflammation. 90% of serotonin is excreted in the gut. So if the gut is not balanced, you talk about it. Of course, it affects us in so many levels. So we got to really address pesticides side by side with mycotoxin. And for some reason, Bridget, at least for me, I know about it. I know about it for decades. I mean, I've done pioneering work in removal of heavy metals. I can say comfortably, I have patents. I have clinical trials on removal of heavy metals. It's not common, but we kind of got numbed that there are pesticides and there's nothing to do about it. They're going, even if you eat organic, it's going to come, in the water, but it's really not something we can accept. It's extremely toxic, and you can see patients who are not getting better until you address environmental toxins and pesticides and industrial toxins. You can live in a great place and eat organic food, and planes happen to fly above your house, and you're going to get all the byproducts of MTBE. And if it's small planes, you get lead sprayed into your organic garden. So we need to address it. So I've done some work with it, and what I do usually, I always do clinical trials on my products. So we've just finished the first few cases with phenomenal results in removal of glyphosate, but also reduction in ochratoxin A, also reduction in mycotoxins. So I want to talk about the formula a little bit, because this is binder thing that you're interested in. So we use kelp as the live substance of the formula, because kelp has life in it. It has alginates, of course, which are well-known binders, but it also has a lot of nutrients that the body needs. We talked about nutritional. It has a small amount, so it's not too much. We specifically lower it, of organic iodine that helps to detoxify the negatively charged ions that we often don't address. We address heavy metals which are positively charged. But what about the chlorides, the fluorides, the bromides from the spraying, vineyard, etc.? And because all these toxins displaces, take over different receptors. And then we use alginate, because alginate is really the swamp cleaner. It's known. If you have a toxic swamp, you put alginates. There's an amazing binding property, especially from kelp, which is high in a certain carbohydrate called hyaluronic acid, and it works very well with citrospectin. The citrospectin you were referring to. High molecular weight, highly esterified, that binds pesticides and toxins in the gut, including DDT, which is still there 50 years after it has been banned, mycotoxin and others. So this is a very strong combination that also has nourishment through kelp. And then
go ahead. I didn't know there's another page.
No, go ahead.
Oh, you guys sent me a bottle of this. I had never tried it before. I totally love it. Like, it's very gentle. Probably for just, how you can just feel a certain formula is a fit for you. Of any binder I've tried, this formula is my favorite binder for my body.
So it's interesting. People ask me, so sometimes I will formulate a product quickly in a few days. Sometimes it will take me 3 years. And sometimes I admit, or don't often say it, sometimes the formulas comes in dreams for me.
Wow.
But then my staff has to go and find the research, otherwise it doesn't matter. So when you leave the formula, when you're an herbalist, when you're a meditator, when you feel the substances, the formula has to have life. So it's one thing that I've gained over decades, is that I can feel when the formula clicks. And often formulas are a list of ingredients based on science. They don't work. You need this click. Like this formula, I just launched it after years, and I pulled it out of the market after 30 days. I said, oops. And people told me, Isaac, people are getting great results. I told them, no, we can do better. Pull it out.
Interesting.
And we reformulated, and indeed, it became gentler and more effective. So the one thing that has a lot of power is fulvic acid, which is present in Shila G, one of the main compounds of Ayurvedic medicine, Tibetan medicine. And there's very clean fulvic acid actually in the mountains of New Mexico. It has about 25 to 30 million years until it's formed, but it's very rich in minerals, very clean, no heavy metals. It's amazing. I was interested in this substance, Bridget, 20 years ago. So I analyzed it. Nobody knew about it, actually, because it is very dark when you kind of extract it from the mountains in the Himalayas. So people send it to me because I go and I do volunteer work in the Himalayas, and I was amazed. Zero heavy metals. I was blown away. You would go through through mountains for tens of millions of dollars of years and extractions and work. And it's interesting because it doesn't only bind to glyphosate, to mycotoxin. It supports mitochondrial function and it reduces neuroinflammation. So it's really suitable, especially for your topic. And then I put glycine in because glycine really helps the glutathione pathway, stabilizes the lining. So a lot of this fulvic acid stabilizes the gut lining. Kelp stabilizes the gut lining, because if we stabilize the gut lining, we're going to stop the autoimmunity. We're going to stop the process. But also, glyphosate and glycine are almost identical. So they actually exchange. They exchange in different tissues, including in the brain. Glycine being a neuroprotective, relaxing neurotransmitter, and glyphosate being a neuroexcitatory. You can see connection between spraying and ADHD and autism, like in the Central Valley. And according to some researchers, like Dr. Sen, glycine and glyphosate will exchange in tendons. And that's why sometimes after antibiotic therapy, you get tear of tendons, according to her. Very interesting. And and the nice thing that we have seen, we're now increasing our studies to 30 subjects, but the first few subjects we saw a dramatic decrease in glyphosate. So we are very excited.
Awesome.
It's the first formula to ever actually being researched. So many people talk about it, so many people try to do, but there's nobody takes the time to actually produce evidence, clinical evidence. So I think this formula and what we are finding when you use it together with the modified citrospectin, you get also the neuroinflammatory benefit, because you are stabilizing the blood-brain barrier with the modified citrospectin, blocking galectin-3. Modified citrospectin controls the microglia activation, which causes ongoing neuroinflammation, and you are removing the pesticides. Glyphosate penetrates into the brain, especially where the blood-brain barrier is permeable because of inflammation. So we are so surprised by the effects and the feedback people get from this combination. And so I just want to go a little bit and tell people how to use it from my experience. So that's a classical.
This could be another good one to screenshot. I'll just share with the audience. This is protocol time.
So the classical protocol, if you're not extremely sensitive, it's the regular. You start with 1 scoop of Pectasol in the morning, and then glyphosate you take 2 capsules, and you build up after a few days to 1 scoop twice a day, flavored with lime or non-flavored, or 6 capsules instead of a scoop. You mix in water, and then you go to the full protocol until you get better. And then if you are young and healthy, you can go back to your maintenance. It's important to realize we are always going to be exposed to glyphosate and pesticides, even in organic food. We get it every day. I mean, if you really track, we just spoke to a leading lab expert in glyphosate. He said every urine sample you can detect glyphosate. There's no way to avoid it. So this is an essential maintenance dose. But if you're very sensitive, then start with half a scoop and then add 1 capsule. And I want to give an advice to the muscle activation people. Very, very important. So what is muscle activation on a philosophical level? It's the body becoming alarmed ahead of time, or when it really doesn't need to, right? So this alarm is not only physical, it's also mental, it's also psychological, it's always being on alert. And it's natural for somebody with MCA because they always feel bad, so they're already on alert. They're always in a sympathetic, remember survival? They're always in a survival mode. And some people who are trained well, like I know my good friend Beth O'Hara, she shares that she can control her sympathetic flow and take down the response because she trained her mind, So if you're taking something and you don't feel grate a little bit, like your gut. I mean, there are some electrolytes in this product. If you were totally healthy, you probably wouldn't pay attention to it even. But because we are on alert, Bridgit, we right away decided it's not good for us. So sometimes we got to go through a few days until the body adjusts. And often people don't get to the threshold where they start getting help. So I want to encourage people to take a little bit more of a deep breath. Try to be a little bit more tolerant and less reactive, also on the level of the mind, of acceptance. Because when we go into an allergic response, the mind responds with neurotransmitter. When we go into a place where we suddenly accept things that we usually don't accept, we develop tolerance. It will affect our allergic response. Absolutely, it has to. It's all related. By the way, galectin 3 drives mast cell activation. It drives eosinophils. It drives histamine. Naturally, right? It's a survival response. So work with this protocol, and it's really the feedback we are getting is remarkable. I mean, it's really something I've put more emphasis in the last year. I worked on this for years, and really, I see this as one of my, key achievements that I think I'm going to offer a real solution for pesticide, which is so needed. So I get a chance to really talk a little bit more about it. So I want to touch a little bit sleep, mold, and mycotoxin because I know it's a topic that is of interest for you, and how insomnia and disrupted sleep can be a vicious circle and cycle in mycotoxin illness, and also in long haul COVID, because we have a very huge, and we have to mention it. So many people have it. People have a huge sympathetic sensitivity, like caffeine or anything that throws the sympathetic system off. And naturally, when we don't sleep, our neurotransmitter go into survival mode. We didn't have the right repair. And Bridgit is an acupuncturist. If we look at the 24-hour cycle in Chinese medicine, it's not arbitrary. The energy goes into the gallbladder and liver. And the liver is where we do the repair at night, right? So if you look at the Neijing as the ancient Chinese text, you will see that the liver is in charge of dreams. And you have the 5 kind of dreams that go to the 5 different organs. Well, these dreams are repair on an emotional, psychological level for every organ. That's why sleep is such a profound tool for healing. And that's why every chronic disease has sleep problems, and mycotoxin is one of them. So when we understand it, we want to address sleep in a holistic view. And you mentioned that you tried the EcoSleep formula. And so I'm glad I'm getting a chance to talk a little bit about sleep today. And I'm talking about it more in a straightforward way. I just was interviewed for a sleep summit where I talk about the esoteric aspect of sleep, how to use sleep for meditation, for personal growth. But that's another part of my journey. But in general, poor sleep affects every area of our health, our mood, our immune function, of course, which mycotoxins completely affects, and gut disruption, and our memory and focus, right? Neuroinflammation. And then every system in the body. Digestion is not good, energy is not good. And naturally, the body has to survive. It goes into stress, metabolism. I mean, mycotoxin mold and weight gain is like almost synergistic. And so when we support optimal sleep cycles, we have to be wise. So melatonin is very important. My approach to sleep is microdosing of melatonin, physiological level. Physiologically, we have only 150 microgram of melatonin. So for this formula, I was pushed to put more than I would have liked to. So I put 250 milligram per capsule. So even if you take 2, you take 500 micrograms. So very small amount, but it's enough, and it prevents the drowsiness in people who don't tolerate melatonin well. And of course, melatonin goes with sleeping in a dark room and stopping the blue light exposures that shuts down melatonin. But there's a much deeper approach to sleep, and melatonin is one of the key ingredients. And so the deeper approach is we want to move ourselves from an excitatory state, which mycotoxins really, really contribute to. because of the effects on microglia and because of the abnormal metabolism. So different herbs that are used, lemon balm, passion flower, L-tryptophan, L-theanine, but the key ingredient is honokiol from magnolia bark. Honokiol has a major immune enhancing effect. It's an antioxidant for a normal cell. It's a pro-oxidant for a cancer cell. I won't go into it why. And it regulates cellular metabolism, and it's an anti-infectious agent, including different fungi, viruses, bacteria, periodontal disease. But honokiol, again, microdosing, 20 milligram only per capsule, shifts us to this GABA state. So we take 2, it's 40. We need more, we take 4 capsules, it's 80 already. But then we touch this thing about the liver affecting all the internal organs in the body during the sleep. So we get the Baisha, which nourishes the liver, clears the liver, and it's white in color, clear. And then we get herbs that nourish the blood, herbs. So Shuchangpu, which is Acarus graminus, is a very interesting herb. I learned this herb from a from a from a meditation master in the Himalayas that I mentioned. This herb is used for clearing the head for high altitude, in high altitude, which means there is not enough oxygen, which is what happens in neuroinflammation or in hypoperfusion. We don't get enough blood to the brain. That's really what the situation is if you're at 14,500 feet or 15,000. I know from my experience. I almost died in this altitude.
Wow.
So you take these herbs, you allow the brain to clear mycotoxins in an environment of neuroinflammation. So this is specifically for the people who have sleep problem because of mycotoxins, because of neuroinflammation. And then the different herbs that addresses, like Lianze, the relationship between the stomach, pancreas, and the heart, the seed of the lotus flower. And then you got the ones that relationship between the gut and the brain and the liver, Swanzaren, and the one that cools the blood and connects the heart to the liver, to the general circulation. So we are now addressing the whole body. So now the formula becomes a sleep repair formula, which is really kind of unparalleled. Nobody thinks about sleep formulas in this way. It's all about just put me to sleep. I want to sleep a few hours, and then a few vitamins. So this is really the thinking about this formula. And the beauty of such formula naturally is that you don't develop tolerance. If you have a jet lag, you take a few more. Like when I travel, and I didn't realize how good it is for jet lag, but I travel a lot. Sometimes it's 10-hour difference. I'll take 6, and then I'll start cutting down over a week, and it really helps my jet lag. But there's no tolerance because we're allowing the body to regulate itself. So you start with 1 capsule the first night because for some people, 1 capsule is enough. And then you can go up to 2 capsules. But don't get distracted. Don't get discouraged if 2 capsules don't work. You can take 6 capsules. It's only 1.5 milligram of melatonin and 120 milligram of honokiol. 1 capsule of honopure is 250. So you can take higher doses even in the middle of the night when you wake up. So it's a really neat formula. And the reason why I know that I was asked to talk about it, and the reason I said, okay, I'll talk about it because it relates to the combination of the Pectasol and glyphosate. It relates to addressing neuroinflammation for mycotoxins because honokiol is a key ingredient that regulates neuroinflammation. There is research on honokiol in multiple neurodegenerative diseases. And because it affects the nerve cell in an intracellular way. And it's specifically synergistic in its antioxidant effects with modified citrospectin. And we published a very important paper on this. So that's why I thought it's really the third piece of the system when we want to connect brain sleep with mycotoxin and general health. So that's a little bit about this topic.
That was an amazing presentation. I really appreciate you putting that together. And I just want to cheer because I know I would love to get some comments. Gail just said brilliant, thank you. But yeah, I think my audience just really appreciates that deep level of understanding of a topic. So And I know for me personally, like when I understand, say, how a supplement works or a meditation practices works, then it helps me to, stick to it and make it a priority. So
Right.
you just explained really well, like why these things are a priority. I just want to highlight a few things you said. I think you're right. Like it's ubiquitous. Pesticides, unfortunately, are ubiquitous right now, and we can't just give up. Though it's like, what can I do about it? I think it's just keep detoxing.
Right.
It's just we're
Totally.
all exposed. So yeah. And I wanted to piggyback about the modified citrus pectin being good for a lot of things. We focused this webinar on mycotoxins because I know my audience wants to hear about that. But yeah, there's so many different conditions. I was just pondering, I've gotten injured a couple times recently. I fell off a bike. I got injured on a roller coaster, and I'm almost 50, and I'm just bouncing right back. And I'm like, I think it's because I detox all the time. It's
Right.
just there's not as much stickiness that can
Right.
form or to
Right.
clean up. It
Right.
just kind of keeps you more flexible. So as I get older, like I just want to age really well. I want to think, we all do, right? We want to think clearly, we want to have energy. Um, so I just feel like this just really supports that argument of
Yeah.
just do these simple things to detox.
I love your comment about the stickiness. Uh, Galectin-3 really drives inflammation. For example, centenarians, well, like the average age in the study was 104, have lower galectin-3 levels than people in their 70s and 80s. And the level go up as
Wow.
we age. And as you look at the graph of the 70s, 80s, you will see a group of people at the bottom, and these are the ones that are going to become this, are going to actually live longer. So if we look at people in their 50s, like the Birmingham Offspring study, 8,000 people, they have microalbuminuria, so no real kidney damage, but a little bit of albumin coming out in the kidney. The level of galectin-3 and the differences are not big between the upper 20% and the lower 40%, 3-time mortality in 10 years, triple the mortality, because galectin-3 drives this inflammation, fibrosis, and then what do we get? One person gets cancer, the other one gets heart disease, the other one gets kidney failure, the other one gets a stroke. So this is why addressing galectin-3 is so foundational to a health program.
Yeah, amazing. I think your team gave me a link to share. So I'm going to go find that while maybe we answer a couple questions. Jody was asking, she said she's got Bell's palsy for the third time recently, not related to vaccine or COVID. And she wondered if mycotoxins could be related. Do you have any comment on that?
Yes, yes. So toxins can definitely be related because what they will create, will create neuroinflammation. Interesting that it's affecting her facial nerve. So of course, you also want to look at dental health and periodontal health, and that different things in the cranium that can put pressure when the facial nerve comes out, and also to the whole area in the brain where the facial nerve is generated. The lower brain, the pons, the area of the pons. And so all of this, especially if she got it third time, it's really unusual. And it's often, in Chinese medicine, we'll call it wind. But what is wind? Is this neuroinflammation. The nervous system is like wired. So definitely, so in this sense, using what we talked about, even a little bit more Honokiol, and using the MCP, the Pectasol with a glyphosate, can be a very interesting formula to use. But the fact that she got it 3 times is highly unusual, and hopefully she's able to recover every time.
Yeah, I think another thing to consider which relates is like chronic virus that flares up.
Of course,
Yeah, so but if the immune system is
of course, yeah, of course. The,
suppressed,
the
yeah.
viral part. I mean, she specifically said it wasn't related to COVID or to a vaccine, but definitely. So,
But it
virus
can be related to other other chronic viruses.
completely, completely. Yeah,
So yeah, there's a big category there. And so yeah, for me when I was sick with mold, I feel like more than some other people I hear about, but just a lot of, I mean, I was getting like cold, like the flu, like twice a month. I was constantly having chills, like almost every day. And so it was just a lot of immune dysregulation. And some practitioners, actually my first old practitioner really focused on the fact I had Epstein-Barr and really always hitting the virus. But you also, of course, have to work on detoxing and letting the immune system come back up. Then these things that are in us won't be flaring up.
Of course, yeah. I do a lot of work, of course, with viruses, but it's the virus. Really, the issue with the virus, of course, is the immune response to the virus. That's really the issue.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so especially Epstein-Barr virus and its effect on the nasopharynx, including cancers of this area. Definitely, there's definitely. So what we're trying to do, because if the virus is dormant, it's there. Is we're trying to mitigate the cofactors that will get the virus out of control. That's really the goal. I think that in my last thank you slide, you have the code if you're looking for it.
Yeah, I just found it. So I'm going to screen share real quick. It's a really nice page they made us. So we right now just sell the Pectasol powder at our site. And since I was just getting to know some of these other products, I didn't, we're just sending you to their site because they have everything. So let me pull it up. There's a coupon code, but I think that there's also, if you use this link, it's already like the coupon's already going to build in or something like that. It's going to populate. So I put that in the link as well. But so look at this, how cute it is. We put our pictures and a coupon code.
Nice.
But yeah, I think there's some other discounts built in from what I understood. Here's the chewables that someone mentioned earlier. Right. If you're sensitive on dosing or you prefer liquid, it seems like the
powder is if you need a higher dose, you can't get it from the chewable. The chewables are you get only chewable you do like twice a day for maintenance. It's great for children. But if you need a higher dose, then we recommend definitely.
Yeah, that's really good to know because I always get, questions about, my son is 14, he still won't swallow a pill. So we always get those questions. So that could be a really easy thing. Yeah, I personally love this Glypho Detox product. We do not carry it yet, and I really love it. Could be just an easy thing to do, regularly at bedtime for everything you were exposed to that day. And we talked a lot about the sleep formula. I was going to comment, I don't know if this has happened in your practice, Dr. Eliaz, but for me, I find a lot of my clients are really resistant to taking something for sleep, even if it's natural. They're like, oh, I can't do that. But I heard a good argument for it at some sleep advertisement where they were saying, like, just like in the daytime, you have to give yourself the nutrients and nourishment and the cues to function. Like you can give it the same thing for sleep. It's a very important time of day. So why are we afraid to, give our sleep time, the honor it needs?
Yeah, you are so right. Sleep is the one thing we do more than anything else in life. So why not honor it and use it? And sleep actually is a profound part of our life.
Yeah. Okay, here's another couple questions, and then we'll wrap up. Cindy asked, mold for decades, cardiovascular impacts are starting to appear. Would Padma Basic be a good fit?
It's amazing. She was reading my mind.
Oh, I don't know that product.
Yeah, totally. So Padma Basic is a very fascinating product. It originated in Tibet. Went with Buddhism to Mongolia in the 16th century and made its way to Petersburg and then to Poland. And it was called Padma 28 in Europe, and it became an approved drug for peripheral artery disease in Europe in the 60s. Approved drug paid by insurance. It has a major effect on circulation and on cardiovascular health with dozens of papers, including a meta-analysis of multiple human clinical trials. I take it every day. It's a great product for regulating circulation, for normalizing the inflammatory response, and for normalizing the immune response, definitely. And it also have a chelating effect on heavy metals. So it's a product I often combine with the Pectasol. It's a very good product.
Awesome. Great. Okay, Cindy, I think you're on the right track. And Cindy, just make sure, you're still not being exposed is so important too, as well.
Yes, that's key. That's key, and people overlook it. They don't realize how tricky it is.
Yeah. Okay, Gail is asking a question we've gotten to, which is if people are allergic to citrus, can they still do the citrus
Yes,
extract?
no problem.
Yeah, that's come up too, and I'm like, this is kind of a different part of the
Yeah,
plant.
completely unrelated. There's no problem also with cytochrome for 50 and drugs that you're not allowed to take, like grapefruit juice. Not an issue. Completely different mechanism.
Okay. So similar question is some people have told me, yeah, they feel sensitive. They feel that they're getting a reaction to the citrus pectin. I think Sue was asking, you talked a little bit about mast cell and ways to modulate that with like mind and perhaps with these products. But if people do feel like they're reacting,
Then start with a very low dose.
okay.
Like lower the dose and stay there. And some people will get certain benefits. Some people will use like 1/4 of a scoop or one capsule, two capsules,
Yes.
and they will stay there for some time. But we have to realize we have to peel the biofilm. We have to change the gut lining. The moment we change the gut, so we need enough dose. The moment we change the gut lining, and the gut lining gets healthier, our gut lining is like our skin. It just happens to be in our body, and there are more toxic stuff there. So the moment we stabilize it, like we close the holes, we don't react to macromolecules anymore. We don't have leaky gut.
Yeah.
We have less of an immune response. The alarm system in the gut goes down, and then suddenly we can tolerate. And in this sense, the Pectasol is really like a remarkable tool for this. And you just have to regulate the dose and stay at a very low dose. And then you can do a low dose, and every third day take a little bit more, and then go back to the other dose. Don't let your body go to the reactive place, but don't be afraid to challenge yourself.
That's great advice. Yeah, I mean, I have clients literally just do a pinch of things. I have
Right.
clients, they just crack me up. Like they can literally only do a drop of something. I mean, but they get better. Like
Yeah.
it's just doing something is better
Yeah,
than nothing.
each one, and sometimes one of the things that I specialize in, I'm considered at least in the medical device pharma world is like a global disruptor. He's like a creator of a new treatment. Is the use of therapeutic apheresis, which is filtration of the plasma to remove toxins and heavy metals and the oxidized lipids. So classically, it's used only for heart disease. I use it for inflammatory diseases and post-infections, and with Lyme disease and with cancer treatments. And I published a lot of this, and my NIH grants are related to apheresis. So in this sense, and now it's an expensive treatment because it's a highly sophisticated dialysis like. It's much more sophisticated than dialysis because we have to separate the plasma of the cells, and we filter the plasma with very sophisticated filters. Then we put it back. Takes a few hours. But for people who can't detoxify, especially with mycotoxins, it's a savior. It's life-changing because suddenly you get a filter working outside your body with no side effects.
So interesting.
And then,
That's a great idea.
so for people who are really sick, so I don't talk about it too much because it's expensive and I don't want people to go, but it's an expensive. But if you are stuck with mycotoxins, and you feel like you can't take a step back, a step forward, that's a solution. And interesting, the severe MCA patients, and they fly from all over the world, they tolerate the apheresis remarkably well, including certain IV therapies like phosphatidylcholine and glutathione, they would never tolerate on their own.
Just not
Because
going through the gut.
no, it still goes to the body when I do the IVs, but it's integrated in the right timing. Because
Oh,
it's
I
all
see.
about timing, that's what Chinese medicine about, right? All about timing. So, so often, for example, one of the reservoirs of mold and mycotoxin is in the sinuses. So even these people who are very sensitive, if I go and I do ozone injection through the inner gums into the sinuses, and you literally sterilize the sinuses, surprising how these patients tolerate it well, actually. But then the toxins that are being dumped are cleared an hour later in the apheresis.
Oh,
And
I
so
see.
you
You
can,
take it out the trash.
yeah, right, exactly. It's very, you literally, so my approach, people used to do it every week, every 2 weeks. I do this 2 days apart only. And you would say, wow, the blood is so clean. Why would you do it 2 days later? Usually 2 days later, if you look at the bag, there is 2 to 5, so much more stuff being dumped because the tissue can finally let go, discharge and elimination. The blood is cleaned, the organs can let go. So for people who are desperate, there are solutions. They're just much more sophisticated.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. So maybe I'll take these last two questions as our last. They're a little similar. I think it's about protocols. One is a cancer survivor wondering how many scoops of Pectasol, and another person is currently fighting cancer.
Right. So great question. And again, in my book, the main chapter is cancer because that's what I do for decades. And there's a protocol on dosing. So the book has a philosophical understanding, but you get 80 pages of protocols at the back. So in principle, for people with active cancer, you gotta take, regardless of galectin-3 level, you gotta take 15 grams a day. If your galectin-3 is above 17, you take 20 grams a day in 2 or 3 divided dosages, and you can take it in correlation with surgery, with radiation, with chemo, with hormonal therapy, with immunotherapy. It's synergistic with all these treatments. It's not a problem. It's a very, very safe substance to use.
And he mentioned earlier people came late, that testing for galactin-3, is that what it's called? Is approved, right, by
It's
insurance or
available by
common?
any lab, LabCorp, Quest, and any lab does. Cleveland Heart Labs, they all do galectin.
Okay.
It was approved for heart failure. So the levels in heart failure are very high because the kidneys are usually damaged, so it doesn't get excreted. But you can't decide if to use modified cytospectin based on your galectin-3 level because certain people, because of their genetic makeup, their galectin-3 level will read lower because they have more pentamers than monomers, and a pentamer and a monomer reads as one because the antibody picks it here. It doesn't pick it here. It picks it in the middle. So this is one, and this is one. So obviously these people have 5 galectin-3, but it will show up in the lab only as one. And that's why the levels will change between people, and that's why you don't pay attention to the levels. The only place where you pay attention, if you are really healthy and your galectin suddenly is like above 13, 14, you got to go on 10 grams. Above 15, you go on 15 grams. Even if you are totally healthy, because something is going on or will go on. And in cancer, if you are above 17, 18, you got to go to 20 grams.
Okay, great.
Because you have more galectin-3 that you need to block. That's why you take more.
So I put the link to the book in the chat here, and I'll link it later in the YouTube too, as well as the coupon code and the page. I don't know how long the coupon code lasts, so don't come back in a year. It might not be good anymore. The book is excellent. It's funny. I've said, someday maybe I'll write a book about functional medicine and Chinese medicine and how they interact. In a sense, that's an aspect of your book.
Yeah,
really. It's so lovely. And, it can be hard for me as a writer. I'm trying to learn to verbalize sort of that heart journey because we're all in it, right? We all have trauma. We all worry about things. And like you said, you always have a chance to let it go. And really it does impact our body. And you talk about our greater community that it impacts. So I just think it's so refreshing to put science and that,
it's really why I teach meditation, because it's a healing aspect. And I know I do bring into it 20 years of spending 2 to 3 months a year meditating in the mountains, and 10 years of half-day retreat, and decades of sitting for hours a day and meditating since the age 15, so almost 50 years. So I realized that this whole complex and esoteric systems I've trained in really boils down to letting go of our survival reactivity and opening our heart. So we respond with love, with compassion, which is what the heart is capable. and we all can do it, and we all fall in our mind traps. We all do it every moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We always
but
go
we
ahead.
always have a choice. So the book really, that's why the book is a paradigm shift. It's this. I offer some of my experience, which I've traveled to very remote places to learn some of this. If people just knew what I would travel all the way to Asia to ask a meditation master a question for 20 minutes. I would go
Wow.
all the way to Nepal for 20 minutes to clarify one question on my meditation. So not everybody does it.
Wow.
Not everybody is crazy as I am, but I'm sharing it in a little bit of an easier way. Just open the book and read.
Yeah, again, we're all learning, like whether or not you're a student of medicine, you're a student of life, and
Of
you have
course.
your own body to take care of. And if you're someone on this call, you're probably going through chronic illness, and it's just you just got to keep learning for your own sake. I'm so thankful my community gets so intelligent, but we all have our weak spots. And
Of
one of
course.
mine, I still work through some of mine, like things I'm relationships I'm holding on to that aren't healthy or situations that aren't healthy, and all. It's like, so learning to let go of that, because when you talk about the process, when our body feels it's in survival, all the inflammation that happens, then
Indeed.
I have to look at myself, and it's like, why are you choosing to still be in this situation? It's that's part of the job as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and the beauty, we have a choice with every breath, with every thought.
Really
That's the
lovely.
amazing thing. That's why, maybe as a closing statement, not everybody will be a miracle, but anyone can be a miracle because we always have a choice.
Mm, I really like that a lot too. Well, I know we had a few last questions, but Dr. Elias will also be on my mold summit this winter, which is fantastic. So I know we had some more questions about mold, and they can be big discussions. I have a book on mold on Amazon as well. I can try to put it in the link here quickly. Yeah, these are all big topics, right? Mold is a lot
Of
to
course.
digest. But I'm so thankful for your time. Hopefully, everyone learned something today. We will have the replay on YouTube actually immediately, which is what I like about this service, and we'll share it with our list too. So feel free to share it with a friend. Take advantage of that discount code. 20% is pretty significant, so take advantage. I've been, again, super happy with the products. What kind of feedback are you getting, Dr. Elias?
Yeah, these products. I mean, again, I'm really not involved with the business part. I mean,
Gotcha.
other people are, but these products are a reflection of decades of studies and clinical experience. So it's you got a taste from my presentation. So they have
Yeah.
power. They are really, it's very rewarding, especially modified citrospectin. I know from our clinical trial that I've added thousands and thousands of years of life to people. I'm talking about extending people's life.
Yeah, he's got some great
And
stories in the book.
that's a good feeling. There's nothing more rewarding than this. And also it's a responsibility and a commitment to share, because the more people use it, the more I have an impact. And this is a result of decades of studies and work.
Yeah. I think people can be nervous. I know I used to be I've already spent so much money. Do I really need to try something else? How am I going to just go really slow, go really tiny? These products have been, again, around and really tested.
Right.
So I think it's worth
Yeah.
the try. Well, thank you so much. It's been such
Thank
a pleasure
you.
to meet
Yeah, thank you
you.
for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to continuing our dialogues.
Me as well. Thanks for everyone who is
Thank
live. I
you.
really
Thank you.
always appreciate
Th-
that energy,
Thank you,
and
everybody.
we'll see you next time. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.